Thank you for joining us, Putney. My name is Moses, and I'm leading the strategic partnerships and speaker engagement here at the Ortis Club. We're really excited today to be speaking to Putney.
Hi, everyone. My name is Putney Cloos. Welcome to CMO Chats. I am the CMO of Bombora, and I'm so happy to be here today.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Let's start with the basics. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Bombora?
Sure. So I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Bombora, which is an industry-leading B2B data company. I have responsibility for all aspects of marketing and communications, including what I would say is the realization of the strategies through marketing operations and revenue operations. So I look after brand, PR, demand, content, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really all-encompassing role and one that I love very much.
Amazing. Really glad to hear that you've been enjoying it. But how did you get into marketing and how did you end up becoming the CMO?
So I've been in marketing for most of my career, perhaps all of my career. I've come at it from a couple different lenses. I spent time first as a brand manager at Kraft Foods, so having that really kind of traditional CPG hub of the wheel experience. Then I spent some really great time at McKinsey & Company in the marketing and sales practice, which is where I really developed my love for the intersection of marketing and sales, which then really makes sense why I now find myself in the B2B context. I spent time at American Express in B2B marketing. And again, another really foundational experience, really learning how to use data to do really high impact marketing at scale. Then was the CMO of Cision, the media intelligence platform, and then found myself at Bombora. And Bombora is kind of a classic love story, I would say. I was a 2-time client, first at American Express, where I brought Bombora in as a part of a transformation I was leading, and then at Cision. And finally, Bombora gave me the opportunity to actually work for the company, and it's been a great fit.
Amazing. It's funny how often it happens where you end up working with a partner at one organization and maybe later transferring to work with them. So that's been an interesting transition relationship for you. You mentioned the use of data with American Express. And can you tell me a bit more about how you're applying those learnings now at Bombora and what you're doing?
So it's actually kind of a meta question, right? Because Bombora is a B2B data company. So our business is we have end-to-end data solutions that we give to B2B oriented organizations to fuel and sales strategies. So I'm both marketing it now as well as a practitioner of it because I use our data and other data solutions to do our own marketing.
Okay, so you're marketing data solutions for marketers.
You got it.
Perfect. I'm assuming that you are drinking your own champagne, so to speak, and you're also using that data within Bombora. What kind of data do you provide?
So our flagship and the sort of original product is Company Surge, which is intent data, B2B intent data. And we actually invented what is this category, which is now has a number of different players in it, but we actually invented this category more than 10 years ago. So Company Surge intent data, we have B2B identity and enrichment data. So for example, being able to better identify and understand anonymous website traffic, convert it into first-party data that's usable for marketing and sales purposes. We also are the industry leader in B2B digital audience creation. So we have both off-the-shelf and custom audiences that are deployable across every ad tech platform and channel that you can imagine. So you can hear in that sort of the end-to-end element of what I was speaking of. And you can also imagine then as the CMO of Bombora, I get to talk about those things all day long to the marketplace, but we're actually using every piece of that within our own marketing strategies and activations.
So one of the questions I was going to get to later, but I almost want to jump to it now. we're talking about what is the future of marketing, and also what is the relevance of AI in marketing. But it seems like a lot of the data points that you're able to collect are both extremely relevant in how they can be used with AI as well as for the future of marketing. Can you give me some? Can you tell me more about this intersection?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many ways we could talk about this topic for the next hour and more, right? What I would say, hopefully most succinctly, is the mainstreaming of generative AI and the ability for all of us, our companies, to build agents that take actions on our behalf, particularly in the marketing and sales space, has created immense demand for high quality data that tells those agents what to do, that those agents act on. And that is exactly a sweet spot for our data at Bombora, right? Because, for example, you take company surge intent data, that tells you both what accounts are in market for a particular product or solution, what sort of content they're consuming across the whole B2B internet, as well as gives you a lens into the different segments of the buying group within that account. All of that data and intelligence is what is then going to allow the myriad tools with AI agents on top of them to take actions on behalf of a marketing or sales team. So we at Bombora really feel like we have always been a data company. We've never been a platform or tool company. We really feel like this is our moment, because now with generative AI, all of our prospects and customers are building all of these agents, but they must have high quality data in order for those agents to take the right actions.
It sounds extremely relevant right now. So let's talk about your audience. Who is your ICP? What topics are they most interested in, and how are you reaching them?
So we have a pretty diverse set of constituents that we sell to. So we sell to big B2B brands. Particular areas of strength for us are financial services, big technology companies, logistics companies. That's one segment. We also focus on the agencies that serve them. So the ad agencies that serve these big partners, right? Or these big brands, because they're the ones that are helping advise on advertising strategy, for example. So thinking about how you would use intent data, digital audiences, first-party data strategies in order to realize the marketing and sales strategies of those companies. So that's another major portion of our ICP. And we actually think about that as a connected buying group, which is super interesting, right? A lot of conversation in B2B right now is about, the complex buying group, and folks will say like, oh, it's 5 to 12 people within a company. And I'm like, oh, hold the phone. In my world, it's 5 to 12 and maybe more within a brand. And then I also have to be thinking about, how do I influence their agency partner as well at the same time, which may be another, X number of humans that are connected to that opportunity. So those are two major constituents. And then we also have a big portion of our business, which is to the publishing community. So think about big and small publishers, in the world, that use our data in order to think about content strategies, for example, or building first-party data in order to drive deeper engagement. So that's a third element of our ICP.
So how are you reaching them?
Probably all the ways that you would imagine. It's always a little bit different depending on which segment we're talking about. But we do a fair amount of digital campaigns in order to build awareness and early engagement with Bombora. In particular, that's been a focus for some of the newer parts of our solution suite, because we are really known as an intent data company, and we've used digital channels in order to build awareness of our full product suite. We also are using a lot of in-person and digital events. in order to start engaging again these particular influencers within and across an opportunity in an effective way. I think that's particularly important to a company like Bombora that has, to our conversation, a pretty complex offering, both in what it is and how to activate it. And so once we've sort of piqued interest, we really need to pull the conversation down to be, one of some depth and in real time in order to ensure that we're driving understanding of what we do, the impact it can have on an organization, and how to actually activate.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for CMOs in today's space that may not have been so in the past?
I think for all of us, and I kind of hate giving this answer because it's the one that I assume everyone is giving you right now. I think it really is how do we as CMOs learn into and harness the potential of generative AI in order to help us do our work better. I mean, I think every function around the world in every industry is thinking about this. I don't do all those jobs, so I don't know. But for CMOs, I think there's this promise that generative AI tools can help us create content and relevant content more quickly. To your point about the example of your friend at American Express, get it placed more quickly in the right place for the right audience at the right time. That's amazing. I think we need to learn all of that while also, not upsetting the apple cart, not upsetting the ship on how we do our work, and figure out where is the promise real and where is it not? Because it can't, not everything is going to work at least tomorrow the way it was promised. And I think that's the challenge. That's one of the challenges that I feel leading my team. And that we talk about, as I said to you, this question of marketing, of B2B marketing, of AI and marketing is a meta question for me because I'm living it and I'm marketing on it. And definitely something that every go-to-market leader that I speak with in our customer and prospect base is thinking about. I will also say there's another aspect of it that I think I'm in particular challenged by, just being honest, is how do we as a company tell our AI story, which is something that, has many facets to it. If you think about enterprise value, right? Every potential investor, partner, you have it, wants to know that you're using AI within your organization to unlock value. We for sure are at Bombora. I think one of the things that's interesting is we've actually been doing that for years. Because how else would we make sense of billions of data points to construct company surge intent data? Like we've been using machine learning models for 11 years. That is AI.
Yeah.
It's only become recently that everybody wants to talk about AI. And I think us being able to, bring that to life, and then of course the new things that are enabled by the next generations of AI is also something that we're thinking about. And how do you tell that story in a way that, sort of the mass market can understand it and appreciate it?
So how are you telling that story?
I would say we're working on it, to be honest. We try to bring to life all of the ways that we're using AI tools in order to make our data solutions, right? As well as there's a component of the story that we're telling, which is how do we put our data into formats in order to fuel other people's use through AI.
You were talking about events at one point. You mentioned that you host your own in-person events. What are the most significant challenges you face when hosting these events, and how do you measure the event ROI?
I think that probably measuring event ROI is the hardest part, right? I think that we have a strong reputation within, the ICP that we serve, particularly among B2B marketers, agencies, and publishers. I think that we have really exciting, innovative content that piques curiosity. So we get people to want to come to our events to hear, what we have to say on a particular topic. I think the reality is that given the complexity of our sort of multi-organization buying group and the nature of our buying journey, which for part of our business is quite a long sales cycle, it is the event ROI from a truly quantitative perspective that is probably the hardest. And I'll tell you, Moses, this is super different, right, than I've had in the past when I was at, for example, American Express. American Express, by and large, if you're thinking about marketing financial services products like business credit cards, that is a much, much shorter sales cycle, right? So much easier to think about ROI of anything, any channel, any opportunity. When we're thinking about big data subscriptions, right, that is a 6, 9, sometimes longer month sales cycle with many, many touch points that influence the ultimate outcome. And so I have had to get a lot more comfortable with a qualitative and quantitative approach to measuring event ROI. To your question earlier about what works for us, given the complexity of what we offer to the market, I know that it is very important that we are having, in-person human conversations about what we do and importantly, how to unlock the value of it. So I don't question the strategy, but I have been uncomfortable as a marketer who grew up in a world where you could really measure ROI on a lot of things very precisely. Saying like, I'm gonna trust that my gut that this is really, really valuable.
That's a big challenge. I find that because you mentioned you've got a very complex solution, right? And you want to make sure people are thinking about you, but if they don't, getting those in-person and face-to-face conversations, you feel the value that comes from it. And it's something that I've noticed a lot going to these events myself, whether it's events with friends, whether it's events with work, you build connections with people and you're able to have build connections which you don't get online and which you don't get in different environments.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 2026. What is your marketing calendar going to look like for 2026? What's at the top of your to-do list?
I would say 2026 for us, collectively as a company, and then as I pull it down to the teams that I lead and steward, is really about execution. I feel like we have a ton of momentum coming in from 2025, which is amazing. We had some new solutions that we brought to market in Q4. We have, another really best-in-class proprietary measurement solution that we're going to launch an extension of at the end of this month. So a lot of the strategy and the cross-functional strategy work has been done. And now it is really about execution. How do we make sure that we bring to life through our marketing and our sales organization, the potential of this new measurement solution, for example. And so what I keep saying to the team is, not that I want to stop thinking about strategy, but 2026 is about best-in-class execution. And while every step might not be perfect, we've got to hit the major marks, if you will, along the way. And that will make sure that we capitalize on the momentum that we built in 2025 and that we, have the year that we know that we can have in 2026. We feel very strongly at Bombora that now is our moment. Going back to what I said to you, we have best-in-class, diverse B2B data that is going to be the critical fuel of the agentic evolution of marketing and sales across the B2B landscape. And it could not be better for us. But of course, we have to make sure that we are partnering with prospects, customers, and our partners in order to realize the potential of what we have.
I love that. This is your moment. This is your year.
This is our moment.
Amazing. Well,
one of the questions I thought you'd ask is about sort of, or maybe you did, but in like a different way. I was thinking about like what is the challenge of like me and my team? And I think I have so much excitement for this year, and they do too. And I really believe that you need to move out of the gates quickly, right? The first half of the year is worth more than the second half of the year if you're on, particularly if you're on a January to December financial plan.
Yeah.
But you also have to pace yourself, right? Executing with excellence is a combination of, sort of urgency and precision. And so you don't want to give up the precision because you're moving urgently, but you don't want to move slowly just so you get it exactly right. And how do I, as a leader, lead my team to strike that balance? I think that's really what I'm thinking about.
How do you think the role of a CMO or a senior marketing leader has evolved over the past few years?
And what I was thinking about there was actually something that I think we all feel, but I can see I can actually see in our Bombora data, which is what I like to think about as the resurgence of brand, right, and the importance of brand level marketing, and I'm feeling it in my own world, with the particular lens of how do I extend the Bombora brand to be more than just intent and to be more this end-to-end go-to-market solution. But we actually can see in our company surge intent data. So company surge allows us to see what, accounts and particular roles, professional roles are looking at across the B2B internet. And we looked at it in 2025 to look at the level of research that was being done on brand marketing related topics versus demand generation, demand marketing related topics. And at one point, I can't remember what quarter it was, let's say Q2, it was 6 times the amount of research was being done on brand related topics versus demand gen related topics. And that only accelerated through the year to be, 8 and 10 times. And I think that's because of all the changes that are happening in the buying journey, because of generative AI and how so much research can be done before coming to a website, clicking a lead form, right? Demand gen isn't the golden tool that it was at some points. I think also economic uncertainty and how things are going to play out, in 2025, 2026 has led CMOs to think more about, well, I got to be on the short list and my brand needs to be on the short list no matter what happens. So I just think it's really interesting that marketers that I think a number of years ago were really getting asked to focus really, really on demand gen tactics, excellence in high precision digital marketing. All of that is still important, but there's been this resurgence to thinking about brand storytelling. Brand could be a dirty word for a while because CFOs and CEOs were like, it's great you're going to do your brand campaign, but really tell me what you're doing about demand. And I think there's better, more of a recognition that brand is essential to demand, particularly in the moment that we're in.
We're coming to a close. So I want to ask one more question for you. If you had to describe the role of a CMO or marketing leader in one word, what would it be and why?
Well, I'm a CMO, so I think it's essential. A CMO and a marketing organization touches so much of what a company needs to do well in order to win. Shaping product strategy, communicating the product strategy, communicating essentials of a company that impact how investors, partners think about enterprise value, thinking about employer branding and how to attract top talent and how to position the company in order to do that. I really think that CMOs and marketing are essential.